And today, Valkyrie Investments has launched what it calls a green Bitcoin mining ETF on the NASDAQ. Valkyrie also has a Bitcoin futures ETF launched back in October. But so far, the SEC has been reluctant to approve a spot ETF that invests directly in the cryptocurrency's price. We'll talk about that a little bit with Steven McClurg. He's the CIO of Valkyrie Funds. And Steven, first, let's focus on the new product here. So many people want to invest in Bitcoin and are held back by one concern, and that is the climate issue. We all know now how much energy it takes to mine Bitcoin, especially when the hash rate jumps up. How do you solve that with a green ETF?
Yeah, well, Matt, first of all, thanks so much for having me on Bloomberg. It's really a pleasure. One of the things that with energy on Bitcoin miners is a lot of it is truly overblown. Bitcoin miners do use energy the same as cloud computing or any other sort of data house will use energy. But one of the interesting things is when China put a ban on Bitcoin miners, a lot of those miners were using coal. And so a lot of those miners shifted over to the United States and Canada and started using more renewable forms of energy as opposed to carbon-based. And that has really shifted where the whole industry has gone. So the energy usage isn't actually that bad, but now it's more renewable than it was even 2 years ago.
So what kind of miners, I mean, we talked to, for example, the CEO of Hut 8, Jamie Leverton, occasionally they shift towards green energy. What kind of miners or products or companies are in your product?
Yeah, so we have a goal of trying to hit at least 75% of the energy consumed by the companies in the fund to be from renewable sources. And we do that on a portfolio weighted basis. But many of the ones like Hive and CleanSpark and Argo, they're already above 90% in renewable energy usage. So some of these places, some of the places where they're mining are in upstate New York, Texas, Washington State, Wyoming, and then places in Canada. Some of the energy consumption that's being used include wind, solar, hydroelectric. And one of the most interesting things that's being done now is gas flaring in places like Alberta and Texas and other places where there's a lot of shale activity. This natural gas is a byproduct of drilling for oil, and a lot of it's flared off, but this gas is being redirected into Bitcoin miners. And that's probably the most interesting thing that we're seeing.
We recently saw the European Union put a green label on nuclear power. Is anybody using nuclear? I mean, I know that there are places where it's widespread, in France, for example, to mine Bitcoin.
Well, there are some places where where miners are present when they're just pulling electricity off of the grid, particularly in Texas. There's a big nuclear energy plant just south of Dallas, and some of the miners that are south of there are pulling from the grid, so effectively using some nuclear.
All right, what do you think about Bitcoin? Give us a price prediction. That's always a fun and difficult part of interviewing anybody related to crypto. Right now, we're looking at 45,000.
Yeah, we seem to have bottomed out a few weeks ago and have now rallied to about 45,000. I really think that Bitcoin is going to follow some of the commodities in the coming 3 to 6 months. And what's interesting in the commodity space is that there's very little supply right now. So we're expecting to see commodity prices go up with Bitcoin going up with it, trading like a commodity. So I think that we're going to see Bitcoin achieve all-time highs again this year and potentially get to 100,000.